We have a treat. I'm really excited about this. It's kind of funny how this works. We have a lot of fun with it. We could, and so I will. And Pastor Brett Fuller is the chaplain of the Washington Redskins. Don't boo. That's a bad thing to do before a speaker gets up. All right, he's just doing what he's called to do in the city that he lives. Don't judge him for that. All right, and so right now we're two very desperate teams hoping for anything, and that's where. So you know what I'm saying? There's two very desperate teams walking out on the field today, going, "God help us," or praying to God they don't even know some of those guys, and so it. But anyhow, he is the chaplain of the Washington Redskins and has been that for a long time, and has done an amazing job there and represented Jesus in the NFL as well as any man I know. And there's a lot of good guys in there, and but I would put him at the top of the list. And that might be all these things I'm saying about you could know to be, they're all tempered by the fact if I listed to you 5 of the people that are closest to me on the face of the earth, in the level of life. Now, I don't mean that I'm above anybody, just where I live, the kind of thing that I do. There's 5 people, 4 others, or 5, that I look to. And on that list is Brett Fuller. And we were just in Orlando together for 3 days as friends, and the 6 of us, and talked about what it means to be friends at this juncture of life, and to be the kind of friends that we have is very rare. And so he's a precious brother to me. Now, after being chaplain to the Washington Redskins, he then is the North American Leadership Director here in Every Nation. So he leads our 75 churches in North America and stands as our leader there. I sit on the table with him and serve him to help lead, and but he is the leader, our NALT director is what we call it. Does an amazing job at that. But I think most importantly, although those all sound maybe outside the world of church bigger, none, to my opinion, because I've been there. I was there this summer. He allowed me to spend 3 days with his team and spoke in his church on Sunday. It's just one of the greatest churches on the planet. When you go there and see what God is doing there and how God is moving there, they got a brand new building that they're in, and they got probably 2,500, 3,000 people, and God is just doing amazing things with Grace Covenant Church. Now, we all say DC, it's actually Chantilly, but we all say DC, and that he's in Washington, DC. Is an amazing pastor, an amazing communicator of the Word of God, a teacher par excellence. I love listening to him. You're gonna love listening to him. Will you welcome one of my best friends, Brett Fuller, to the platform this morning?
Well, it is really good to be with you. Thank you, Pastor Russ, for that kind introduction. All those spheres in which I am privileged to serve generally means this, that when something goes wrong, they blame me. That's all it is. It's much less heady than you think. I'm just the guy who is responsible. But it is a privilege to be able to serve in those environments. And you know what's really fun is being able to work with people you like. You show up every day to work and you think, these are great folks. Now, I've got some really good people in my church. Love them. I'm not one of those pastors that shows up with a have-to smile on my face every day. I love my congregation. There's no people on the planet, not a people on the planet, that I enjoy speaking more to than my people. But I also have this cadre of friends.
Kids, y'all, not easy. So thank you, Christina, for all that you do. And thank you, now look at me for a second. Thank you for singing great, for looking amazing. But thank you for singing about Jesus. Thank you for singing about Jesus. That's what I want you to do for the rest of your life, is tell other people about Jesus. And all of you said, Amen. That was pretty good. I got to start training them now in case I hang around. And all right, one last time, Jesus is Christmas by our own children. Everybody, let's give him a hand. Oh. All right. Follow Miss Christina out, and I'll just kind of get to work here. And hi, Daly. Hi, Libby. I know so many people up here now. All right. I was going to tell you to be seated, but you did that by yourself. Well, thank God for the weather. I got up this morning, I thought, are you kidding? Today of all days? And, I was actually glad.
And I could not have. And I grew up in the 60s. I was a little bit young to do marching, but I grew up in the 60s. I'm 58 years old. And I remember everything that happened then. And I'm grateful for the progress that we have made as a country. It's been enormous. We're not where we should be, but it has been enormous. And I give credit to all those who sacrificed so much to get us to where we are now. And there's still some things we need to fix and clean up. I get all that. But I get really happy because I know what it looks like to walk with people who care, that don't look like me. And I know what it looks like to walk with people who don't care but act like they do. They just put a good face on it. They do a lot of window shopping in order to make their church look better, but they aren't interested in dealing with the real issues. And I have the privilege of walking with some of the most substantive people with respect to ethnic reconciliation on the planet. And your pastor is one.
Praise God.
He's on the phone with me talking and say, what do I do now? This thing happened this week with this police officer. What do I do now? How do we do this? Things we can talk about. And there's unity. Now, the approach about how we minister to the congregation, mine is very different than his. My congregation is about 65% African American, but the rest, Asian, Latino, white, we got everything else in there. It's beautiful on a Sunday morning. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I love it. But I say things from my perspective that are different than what he would say from his. Mine comes from the party that is most offended. Yet I cannot present that offense on Sunday because I'm first a Christian, then I'm...
What went wrong? All right, I want to take a couple of minutes here. First of all, I want to say this. I left here last night about, 10 after 8. We had a party for what we call our life sages and life singles, and it's the mature vintage part of our church. And man, we had fun. I got in the car and I went out and I told Debbie, I said, so much love in the room, so much grace in the room, so much giving. There's so much giving, and it kind of leads into what I want to say today. We're going to stay in our Jesus According to John series, and I'm just going to abbreviate it a bit and share some things that I think were important. But the reason the night was amazing is everybody was giving. Everybody was in it and was there for one another, and for a moment in time lost sight of their own pain, I think, and thought, you know what, this is fun. And we had fun. We had moments of singing carols together, eating together, joking and laughing together, serving together. It was just great whenever Dan got up and said, because all of our parties, y'all, if you come to one of our parties, if you pay to go to it, you're cleaning up at the end. I'm serious. We actually think it's a value. And so when we come, and it's interesting, you get up at the end of a party, and then everybody goes, all right, before you leave, you got to help us take down the tables, help us stack the chairs, help us get the floor cleaned up. And it's a value that we have here. If we come and we receive, we give back. And it was just so fun watching everybody scurry around, put stuff away, and within 10 minutes, they had the whole rotunda torn down, everything put back, everything in order, and it was just so neat. We dropped a few stacks of chairs. We are a little bit less coordinated than what we were in our younger days. We'd hear this kaboom. We'd look over and there'd be a stack of chairs on the floor. And I went over and said, we just put all this up at one time, the three of us. And we tried that for a couple of times. People were laughing at us. I said, okay, just take them apart. We'll do it one at a time, stack them back up. And it was just, we had the biggest time, and it was fun. And so thank you for that. And all of you that are going to your parties, give to one another when you're there. Give to one another when you're there, and serve before you leave. And all right, so let's jump into this. Jesus According to John, and this one I gave it a name, When Giving Becomes the Norm. When giving becomes the norm. All four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are comprised of historic snapshots. There are these historic snapshots of the events in the life of Jesus that reveal his redemptive work and way of life. Okay, so they tell of his birth, they talk about his teachings, about displays of his power, his way of life, how he did things, how he handled people. All of those are in order to lead us, all right, to his salvation and what we call around here now the good life, to lead us to salvation and the good life. So the Gospels are these little narrative snapshots. And one of the repeating narratives that you'll see all through all 4 Gospels is depictions of community, of groups of people that maybe you wouldn't have thought would be together, now together, enjoying life together, serving together, having and finding meaning with one another. And in John chapter 12, we see this in living color. And I've already talked about this chapter at the beginning, so I just want to kind of remind us of a couple of things, make a couple of points here that I think are super important in this Christmas season and maybe somewhat prophetic to us here today. All right, so John chapter 12, verses 1 through 7. On the screen. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. We talked about that last week. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume, but Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" So that's about a year's wages. And he said this, he said this, "Not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it." Jesus said to her, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial." Now, I want to look at these 3 siblings real quick. Again, this will be like the 3rd time we've looked at their lives. Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. All right, Lazarus, just remember, Lazarus was a guy who had been dead and in the tomb for 4 days. Everybody say 4 days. 4 days, so that's like really dead. It's not like in The Princess Bride when he's mostly dead. He was all the way dead and gone, and he was decomposing almost for sure. So, like I said last week, Lazarus sitting at this table was quite different than being healed. If Jesus would have showed up and healed him, that would have been amazing. All right, but it wouldn't have been the same as being dead and in the tomb for 4 days and being raised. This guy was raised from the dead, so he's sitting at the table with Jesus. So before Jesus, he was dead. Now with Jesus, he's alive and living life. All right, that's important. So what would Lazarus be sitting at the table? Wouldn't he be, come on now, overwhelmed with gratitude? Wouldn't he be the ultimate amazing grace story? We talked about it last week. I once was dead, now I'm alive. I once was lost, now I'm found. And so it's just unbelievable gratitude. Just like, Jesus, what do you want to do? That's what I'm going to do. You raised me from the dead. It's me and you. I'm full of gratitude. I'm living for you. So that's how Lazarus would be, all right? So we see him filled with gratitude, just ready to do whatever because he once was dead, now he's alive, all right? And then Martha. I want to go back to Luke, one of the other gospel writers, in chapter 10, and show you a couple of verses to show you the story that makes Martha most famous, all right? All right, this is what we normally know about her when she's taught about. In verse 38 in chapter 10. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." All right, so we're not going to go into it in great detail. That particular verse is preached on often for people who get overwhelmed with stuff. And Martha was a woman who was distracted, and now she was actually aggravated about her serving because people weren't helping her. People who serve always get frustrated with people that won't help. It always happens. And people that have a gift of serving, who love to serve, who see the need to serve and know how much better everything would be if everybody served, get frustrated with people who don't serve. So the picture we have of Martha that's talked about quite often is a frustrated servant. All right? But now in chapter 12, we read there's no qualifier. Mary's not helping her. Lazarus just sitting there, but Martha's serving. Something happened that changed Martha to go, I don't care if nobody else is serving. I just want to serve. My heart is so full and I love to serve, so I'm going to serve. So Martha has been changed. She's become a giver because of something that has happened in her life that she no longer uses what's around her to gauge if she's going to serve. One thing causes her to desire to give, the fact that he is at the table and she now wants to serve everybody there. Martha's changed because of Jesus. She loved to serve. Mary, if you want to understand why it's so important that Mary's at this table, it's in John chapter 11. We read this last week. Verse 28 is a verse built around her when Martha has gone out, remember, and confronted Jesus. Not confronted him, but basically went out and, I almost did that to her again. Really didn't confront Jesus. Went out with a question based on her faith. If you'd been here, he wouldn't have died. How come you didn't come right when they asked you? And so Jesus has this moment of conversation with her and helps her to see things differently. And then we know that he asked about Mary. Why isn't Mary with you? We know he asked that because of this verse. Verse 11, verse 28. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and he's calling for you. He wants to know where you're at. So he would have expected Mary in her faith to be there, but she wasn't. Mary had become what I call a spiritual recluse, a person who's been brokenhearted through some disillusionment because God didn't do what she thought he should do. And people that are great demonstrative worshipers, she's the one, remember, she wanted to sit at Jesus' feet and hear his teaching. She loved to worship. She loved services. She loved church. But now she'd become a spiritual recluse because things didn't work out like she thought. Her brother had died. And this is before he was raised from the dead. But now she's become a passionate, expressive worshiper again, a giver. She's just giving all she's got, takes this most expensive bottle of perfume she's got, and then pours it out on Jesus' feet just to anoint him for his burial. And she didn't even know she was doing that. She was just wanting to give with reckless abandon. Because when your heart is full of God, when you see raised people from the dead, when you're full of the presence of Jesus at the table, you just want to give. And if you're a worshiper, you're a giver. If you're a server, you're serving. If you're full of gratitude, you're just like, whatever, I'm so happy to be alive, I'll just do whatever you want to do. Everybody at that table was marked by giving. Christmas is about giving. You know, people often go, which one of those are you in the story? So then people will go, I'm a Mary. Anybody ever had anybody, I'm a Mary, I'm not a Martha. I'm a Martha, I'm not a Mary. You ever had anybody do that to you? You know, you're missing it by a mile if you do that. When people go, so who are you in the story? What John meant, what God meant when he moved on John, is that we would be all three. Never that we would be one or the other, that we'd be giving in service, we'd be giving in worship, we'd be filled with gratitude that we're raised from the dead, that we would live that way at table with Jesus. That we were to be all three, not one or the other. So here's the bottom line. When Jesus is doing his redemptive and transformative work in a person's life, they will always be marked by giving. When a person's really being moved on by God in his redemptive work, when he's transforming them and changing them, when he's filling them with their presence, their life will always be marked by giving. Never an exclusion from that. You say, what if you're brokenhearted? Mary was. What if you're frustrated with people and church people and people? Martha served. What if you're not even sure what you're doing on this earth? Be filled with gratitude that you're on this earth and you're born again. No one has a reason to not be a giver. So, Russ, I got a lot of pain. Me too. You want to guarantee something good for your future? I'm off note right now. This is dangerous. You want to guarantee a good future of influence and being used of God and feeling significant about being alive? If you have great pain in your life right now, you have a treasure. Because how you minister and give in pain will define the influence that you have in the future. The way you operate, the way you give, the way you serve, the way you live in pain will define the influence you have in the future. The work Jesus is doing in us creates ability and abundance. I can't get up this morning and go, I don't have enough to give. Jesus goes, I'm here. I don't feel like I should do it, Lord. I didn't ask you how you felt. I just asked if you want to be a vessel. God doesn't ask us how we feel, doesn't ask us what's going on. He goes, do you want to be used? Because I'll fill you up. You'll walk in that room and you'll forget yourself when you see the other people and you'll go, I'm here for them. And you'll smile and you'll shake a hand and you'll go hug a neck and you'll go start celebrating other people's lives. You'll give words of encouragement. You'll find ways to serve. You'll worship with reckless abandon so that it'll light a fire in people around you to worship with reckless abandon. You'll become a giver. Every day you should get up, raised from the dead, and go, I'm a giver. The amount of dynamic activity by the unseen Jesus. He means for this to happen, y'all. The unseen Jesus, the Jesus people in the world go, let me see him. Well, let him see him. Let them see him, because he's always determined to let the world see him in you. It's in these earthen vessels that the treasure of Jesus is going to be found by a world that's out there without him. It's us. It's us. And so the amount of dynamic activity by the unseen Jesus in us will always be determined by the amount of giving and generosity practiced by the person or community you're in. If there's low giving, there's low presence. You say, now wait a minute, Russ, I'm hurt. If there's low giving, there's low presence. When we surrendered to him, and then started seeking him wholeheartedly, when we do that, he fills us with gratitude. You can't come into the table with Jesus and sit down at the table of Jesus and forget that you were once lost and now you're found. You can't sit in your prayer time and look across there and go, I couldn't even talk to you until you came and found me. I couldn't have this meal with you. I couldn't have the good life with my brothers and sisters. I couldn't have this right now without you. And your heart starts filling up with gratitude. And there might be a lot of things going wrong, but there's a lot of things to be thankful for. And if you keep a list of what you're thankful for, life will start to change. You can't sit at that table with Jesus. You can't be in that word for long. You can't be in the church for long. You can't be around the community of faith long. You can't sing a worship song for long and your heart doesn't fill up with love. It just starts filling up with love. It comes out of heaven. It comes out from out there. It doesn't come from another person. I'm not talking about human sustainability right here. I'm talking about a sustainability that comes in the Spirit of God, and he pours himself into you as you sit at table with him. You start getting a vision for a preferred future when you're around Jesus. When you get around Jesus, you go, man, things are bad. Then you get around Jesus, go, they could be better. They could be better. And the next thing you know because of him, they could be better. You get captivated by the better, and the things that are wrong start fading out, and the things that could be start driving you to reach for all that God has died to give you. This filling at the table with Jesus creates giving that blesses others. I love Christmas. All the gifts. People go, it's so material. Well, you know what? You're right about that. But I sure love those gifts. Sitting around going, wait, why are you trying to figure out what to get them for Christmas? Why? Why don't you just get them something? Why are you trying to figure out? You know what you're trying to figure out? What will touch them? What will make them really feel what I feel for them? I love Christmas. I got all kinds of things where I can get off by, and people go, aren't Christmas trees in the book of...
To our deserving punishment, his kindness appeared. And this, my dear people at South Point, is one of the greatest ways you can say Merry Christmas. Because how did his kindness appear? In the form of sending his son to die on our behalf. He didn't just send a solution. He didn't just send a prophet. He didn't send finances. He didn't just send his message. It all culminated in sending his son. It built up to that. This is how I show my kindness. And the incarnation is just beyond our imagination. We can't put it all together. But we need to make sure we go to the limits of our intellect so we can get as much as we possibly can. Simply because something is incomprehensible doesn't mean you can't understand.
Remember, John is trying to.
When you get to the end of your intellect, you don't give up and say, well, I can't get it, so God must not be real. No, you lift up your hands in worship and say, he's bigger than me. He is so much bigger than me. And if God can fit in all of your mind, I don't know that that version of God that you worship is him.
Wasting that money?
So much bigger. But the stuff he gives us, the wisdom and understanding that he allows us to attain, wow, it blows my mind. But it's simply a peephole because he is infinite in his nature. And there's no way that the finite can fully understand the infinite. That he allows us to understand anything is amazing. And the incarnation, that he gave up so much to get so little. Nobody has ever made that exchange. It's a really bad deal for God. He gave up all of his glory, his omniscience, his omnipresence, his omnipotence. That's every place at once, all-knowing, all-powerful. He gave up all that. He didn't give up his godness. He can't. If you are God, you can't stop being him. It's like asking a human to become a dog. Can't happen. But you can give up your privileges as being a human and decide to do something else. So if you live at this stature, you can live at this stature if you wish. And you would hope that the payoff to do that would be great. The problem was, from our perspective, the payoff wasn't that great. He gave up all that to get us. And we value ourselves so much that we actually think it was worth it.
That's so true.
In fact, this is how we respond to God so often. We get mad at him when he doesn't do what we feel he needs to do for us because we think we deserve it. And we got the best end of the deal already. We were destined for destruction, apart from him for eternity. I know the Bible describes what that is, but there's no way my mind can get itself around that. To be apart from my creator for eternity, or at least forever, whatever. I'm not going to go into the difference. For a long time, apart from him. And he allowed me the privilege now to not only come close. It would be enough if he sent his son just to forgive me for my sin. That'd be enough. Just wipe out my transgression. Help me to not suffer the consequences of my misdeeds. That would be enough. Thank you. I worship you forever for that. I don't have to suffer. Thank you. But he did so much more. He didn't just wipe out the whiteboard that had all of my offenses on it and, commensurate to that, take away all my punishment, and not just take it away, but take it on himself on the cross. He didn't just do that. He said, I'm going to bring you into my family. I'm going to give you my name. Yes. A name is really important. Yes. I realize that there's a movement in our country with respect to the female gender that is looking for more legitimacy and equal participation in life as men. All for it. All for it. But I also know that there are things that can be violated that God put in order that are supposed to be helpful and not a hindrance. And one of the ideas is that, should a woman really take a man's name? I mean, she gives up her independence. She's her own woman. Why should she take his name? She doesn't need that. And they assert their right. And I'm not really mad at them. I get it. Most men are so messed up that the woman may not want to be identified with them. I get it. I really do. I get it. But that wasn't the original intent. Right. Adam was made first. Eve was taken from a rib from Adam. That rib was taken. God, over here someplace, we don't know where, made the woman from the rib he had taken from the man. And then it says in Genesis that he brought the woman to the man. And so Adam woke up from his
Practices in their life to connect with Jesus on a regular basis.
It's like the first thing he saw was this creature who had never been before. He looked at her and said this, "You're just like me."
Come into the marriage, they come into the relationship, they come onto the team, they come into the church, they come into the organization, whatever you're trying to build.
I'm going to change your last name. Adam means man, which is Ish. He called her Ish-Shah. Now in the Hebrew, the last name was first because it identified you with more the family, and then your personal identification came later. So he said, I'm giving you my name. Everything here is something that's been added to me that can be taken away. The only thing that can't be taken away from me is my name. It's the most valuable thing I've got. And I want to identify with you to such a degree that I give it to you. That's what that means. Again, men have messed it up to where it's now a thing of possession. It was supposed to be pure identification.
Fill up in Jesus.
That God gave me his name. And then on top of that, it'd be enough if you just called me into the family and gave me his name. He gives me an inheritance. He gives me stuff. He provides for me while I'm on the planet when I'm still a little disobedient, at least more than I'd like. And the inheritance is not just the material possessions. Paul says, I pray that the eyes of your understanding might be opened in Ephesians 1, that you might know the hope of his calling and the riches of his inheritance in the saints.
Joyful.
It's Russ and Debbie. There is a wealth of inheritance that he has, that he gives me in relationship with them. And we don't value that part of our inheritance very much, and we find ourselves dismissing it regularly because it's hard. But everything is hard. Life is hard. If you're going to breathe, then today while you breathe is going to be hard. You have to decide which version of hard do you want. I'd rather take this version of hard in working through stuff than to say bye and try a new version of hard called loneliness. Or trying to figure out how I can find a duplicate version of them someplace else. The problem is I got 20 years with them. No way I can duplicate that in 5 minutes. Or a year. Too much history. Too much inheritance. It would be enough if he just forgave me for my sin. But I got a great family. I got a great church. I got great friends. I'm the most blessed man on the planet. Now, there are other people that are equally as blessed. Russ and Debbie fit in that category. But nobody is more blessed than me. And I still need a lot of money. I got a bunch of kids going to college. I need a lot of money. But I'm the most blessed person, even though I don't have all that I need financially. But he provides for me in every way. I'm not trying to harp on that. I'm just letting you know that I look at wealth as being much more than just money. The incarnation. He came and took on a human body. Gave up all that. Gave up everything he had there in terms of his omniscience, his omnipresence, his omnipotence, so that he could take on a human body and sacrifice himself for my benefit. That was God's best version of kindness. And how did he do it? He partnered with love. Partnered with it. He says, but when the kindness of our God and his love for mankind appeared. Love is the basis behind everything that God does for us. But kindness is the way we see it. So kindness is a reflection of love. If somebody says they love you, but they verbally slap you every time they come into church when they see you, you have to sit down and question and say, okay, what do you mean by love? Because you sure aren't very sweet to me. I got to figure out what you mean when you say you love me. Because that what you say hurts me every time I see you. Kindness is a reflection of how we love people. And the beauty of God's kindness is that he loves us when we don't love him. He loves us in contrast to everything that we do. And the way he does it, the way his kindness appears to us, is that he bases everything on how he can sacrifice for our benefit. We are called to be like him for the world. Kindness is not just that which you give to people that you are friends with and are kind to you. If you want to be like God, you've got to be kind to the unkind. Merry Christmas. We've allowed all the good feelings of Christmas to dominate. And the gospel story is beautiful, beautiful. But we have to really get how it looks from heaven, not just how we receive it here, but how it looks from heaven. That's when the fullness of all the revelation of what redemption looks like can be felt in your house. He was kind to Brett when Brett was unkind to him. And why? Because he intended to save me. It wasn't just that he wanted to show off, though that would have been fine. It was that he had a purpose. I deserved wrath. He didn't want me to get it. I deserved death. He didn't want me to get it. He wanted to save me from both. And the only way he could do it is to envelop his son in a
White hair. Used to sing up here a lot. And Kathy Lee and
vulnerable than a baby. When we talk about omnipotence, that means all power. There is no power outside of the power that he has. He has it all.
and then we started singing Christmas carols, and they just did them in traditional fashion.
They are dependent upon somebody else to do everything for them for like 38 years. I'm sorry. Just a little something came out. Completely dependent. Anything more ignorant than a human child? No knowledge. Yet he was omniscient before. Now he's dependent upon the best version of his humanity, which is still stupid compared to him, to now teach him what 2 + 2 equals. Omnipresent. He filled the universe and beyond.
And the leave filled.
And now he's confined to a 6 pounds, 6 ounce, 20-inch baby body. It's like us living in a closet for the rest of our life. He gave up all.
If I got
He said, a body you have prepared for me in Psalm 40. And we look at that and we see, okay, well, God makes us, and that's beautiful. No. The passage is saying this: you prepared for me a body. I choose to take it.
That's how you teach. It's how you lead. But before you go, we have one song. And if you didn't step up to the table yet, if it was all about the children, I totally understand that. I had I don't know how many grandkids up here. And nieces and nephews, and good gosh. But maybe for a minute before we leave, we're going to receive the offering and we're going to go. But could we stand to our feet and sing a worship song together and move up to the table with Jesus and ask him to fill us from the front to the back? Don't watch. Close your eyes if you need to. Do whatever you need to do if you know the words. And can we just worship Jesus with reckless abandon, one song, and then we'll do a couple of particulars and get you on your way. Amen? Let's sing together.
And get some kindness to come out of you, so you just gave up and you went and found something else. How many congregations have you been a part of because something bad happened and you chose not to be a redemptive benefit? You chose to walk out. Kindness. We're called to be kind like God has been kind to us. And as I close, may this be one of the freshest ways that you wish somebody a Merry Christmas. To be kind to them as God was kind to us. Father in heaven, I thank you for your goodness and grace. Empower us, please, to be the kind of people who can be kind like you. I thank you for what you built here for Russ and Debbie and the team, and all that you are constructing. And this church is not just a church for this particular community of South Point. It is a church for the entire city of Jacksonville. And I pray that you would make it stand up strong and put it on a pedestal, a light on a hill, that people could come and find refuge from everything they're fleeing. Bless this congregation with strength and power. And raise up a mighty people who can help change the world for your glory. In the name of Jesus, amen. Love y'all.